Hey, this is Liam, your narrator. Just want to say a very quick thank you to all of you listening, watching, commenting, liking, subscribing, sharing, and all of that good stuff. It really helps out the channel and is much appreciated and very encouraging for me. So with all that said, let's get into the story. As the sun set and the final vestiges of the day reluctantly gave way to night, my friend Jake and I found ourselves standing outside the sombre silhouette of the abandoned Emerson Apartments. A giant monolith of a forgotten era, it stood in its decaying glory, brimming with a morbid allure that held our teenage curiosity captive throughout the school year. It was a legend amongst our peers, an urban jungle of ghost stories, a promised land of adrenaline and thrill. With school holidays upon us, we felt like adventurers emboldened by the freedom of adolescence. The rumours of a malevolent spirit haunting the building, said to punish trespassers with violent death, served more as a tantalising incentive than a deterrent. We were young, foolish, and hungry for a tale to tell. The building's entrance was an archaic wooden door, its once rich polish eaten away by time. It groaned in protest as we pushed it open, revealing a pitch-dark abyss beyond. With torchlights in hand and hearts pounding with a strange cocktail of fear and excitement, we stepped into the unknown. The air inside was heavy, filled with dust particles that danced eerily in our torchlights. The architecture was a stark echo of forgotten prosperity, peeling wallpaper, cracked marble floors, and an imposing staircase spiraling up into the darkness. We started exploring room by room, each of them an echo chamber of eerie silence and ancient despair. It was on the third floor that things started to change. It was colder here, an unnatural kind of cold that gnawed at our bones and made the air shimmer with unseen energy. In the corridor, we saw a door slightly ajar, flickering with a dim, ghostly light. It was the first sign of any light apart from our torches. Drawn like moths to a flame, we inched towards it. As Jake pushed the door open, a gust of wind rushed past us, snuffing out our torchlights. Inside the room was bathed in an icy blue glow, emanating from an indiscernible source. At the centre stood a woman, her face obscured by a lace veil, dressed in an antiquated gown. Her very presence was an anomaly, a ripple in reality that sent waves of dread crashing over us. Then she raised her hand, pointing an accusing finger towards us. A sound escaped her, a dreadful mix of a scream and a growl, so powerful that the room trembled in response. Panicked, we bolted out of the room, running aimlessly in the pitch-dark corridors. Suddenly, my foot hit something and I tripped, my heart freezing as I felt Jake's grip slip from my hand. "Jake!" I yelled, but my voice echoed in the silence. He was gone. The fear that had been a thrilling companion now turned into a monstrous entity, clawing at my sanity. I was alone, trapped in this building with a vengeful spirit. The walls seemed to close in, and each shadow twisted into grotesque shapes. I could hear distant whispers, soft giggles, and cries of agony, a terrifying symphony of the damned. Dread recoiled in my stomach as I stumbled upon the same room. The spectral woman was still there, her hand still outstretched, but now pointing at something on the floor. My heart lurched as I recognized Jake's baseball cap. I don't know how long I ran, how many stairs I climbed or rooms I traversed. I was in a never-ending nightmare, the spectral woman appearing at every turn, her silent scream echoing in my ears, her accusing finger always pointing at reminders of Jake. My last memory was of tripping over something, falling down the stairs into an engulfing darkness. Then nothing. I woke up in a hospital bed, greeted by the somber faces of my parents and a police officer. They found me unconscious at the entrance of the Emerson Apartments. As for Jake, he remained a missing person. The officers say they combed the entire building, but there was no sign of him. In fact, they found nothing. No icy blue room, no signs of a spectral woman. The Emerson Apartments were just that, an old, abandoned building. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, the spectral woman, pointing, always pointing at something. I knew then she was not just pointing at Jake's remnants. She was pointing at the monstrous reality of our hubris, our reckless dance with fear that had cost us everything. I was left with a horrifying tale to tell, a story born out of the darkness of an abandoned apartment, the eerie silence of an empty bedside beside mine. A tale of two school friends, an unquenchable curiosity, and a malevolent spirit residing in those Emerson Apartments. The last cardboard box settled onto the cold, hardwood floor of my new apartment, a derelict, character-filled haven in the heart of the city. While others might be intimidated by its aged, almost eerie facade, I was drawn to the building's quiet solitude. I was the newest resident of 101 Grey Street, the city's oldest apartment block, abandoned, forlorn, and marred by years of neglect. It offered an eeriness that I found intriguing. There was only one other occupied apartment on my floor. I never saw who lived there, only occasionally heard strange sounds. The unmistakable echo of sorrowful sobbing, blood-curdling screams, violent bangs, as though someone was desperately trying to escape. Alongside these disturbing sounds, my own apartment was plagued by peculiar electrical problems. Lights would flicker, suddenly die out, and then spring back to life. My old radio, an antique I inherited from my grandfather, would spontaneously turn on, emitting garbled static at all hours of the night. Strangest of all, though, was the recurring odour that would permeate my apartment each night. It would always appear at exactly 3:42 a.m, a putrid stench that clawed at my nostrils as if something was rotting. Despite the haunting strangeness of my surroundings, I found myself becoming immune to the odd occurrences. That was until the dreadful night I couldn't ignore the mystery any longer. The incessant sobbing next door escalated to a tormented wail, rattling my resolve. It was then I decided to confront the source. Steeling myself, I approached the neighbouring apartment. my heart pounding in my chest. I knocked the door. No response. I knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. Emboldened by the eerie silence, I reached for the doorknob, and to my surprise, it was unlocked. Pushing the door open, I stepped into a world straight from a chilling horror tale. The apartment was freezing, a coldness that bit into my skin. I wandered through the cluttered living room towards the source of the wailing, the bathroom. The sight that met my eyes there made my blood turn to ice. In the bathtub lay a woman and a young girl, lifeless, their faces pale and eyes vacant. They were dressed in old-fashioned clothes, their hair floating airily around them in the murky water. A dreadful realization hit me. They were the source of the nightly stench. Nearby lay a water-damaged note, scrawled hastily in what I presumed to be the woman's hand. The ink had bled, but one line was still legible. "Forgive us. 3:42 a.m. With a guttural scream, I fled from the apartment, dialing 911 as I locked myself in my own place. The police arrived quickly, their questioning eyes assessing my shaken state as I narrated my ghastly discovery. The following days were a whirlwind of police, forensic teams, and the shattering reality of living next to a horrific tragedy. They determined it to be a murder-suicide, dating back several years, the apartment having remained untouched since. Despite the macabre incident, I chose to stay in the building, a decision that surprised even myself. The ghosts of the mother and daughter deserved better than to be abandoned. I took it upon myself to ensure their apartment was cleaned and their belongings donated to charities. As the days turned into weeks, the disturbing phenomena ceased. The nightly sobbing was no more. The electrical problems vanished, and the awful stench was replaced by the comforting aroma of my brewing coffee. Perhaps in some way, the mother and daughter had found peace, their tragic tale finally unveiled. Life at 101 Grey Street took on a new normalcy, one intertwined with an acceptance of its macabre past and a newfound tranquility. In the end, I found that even amidst the most horrifying circumstances, there exists the potential for healing and hope. The derelict building and its haunting history became a part of my own narrative, a stark reminder of the human ability to confront and overcome even the darkest of fears. My name is Henry Littman, a property investor with a discerning eye for golden opportunities. My latest acquisition, however, was a tarnished gem in a forsaken neighbourhood. The Crawford Building, an abandoned monolith that none dared to touch, available for a throwaway price. From the first day, an uneasy dread hung around the building, a discomforting energy that knotted my stomach. Unseen forces toyed with the refurbishment efforts. Tools disappeared, strange shadows danced in the corridors, inexplicable cold pockets roamed the rooms. Workers reported nightmares, illnesses, and an ever-present sense of being watched. Intrigued and disturbed by these anomalies, I decided to delve into the building's history at the local records office. It was here that I uncovered the Crawford Building's grim past. Decades ago, it housed a notorious cult known as the Circle of the Black Dawn. They practiced witchcraft, occult rituals, and chillingly, human sacrifices in the basement, exploiting the unsuspecting residents as their offerings. According to an old newspaper clipping, a powerful demon had been summoned, which had slaughtered all the residents and cult members alike in a horrific bloodbath. The discovery was a chilling blow to my sanity. I was not dealing with a mere haunted building, but a possessed structure, a demonic lair with a malevolent entity. Fueled by a perverse mix of fear and curiosity, I decided to explore the dreaded basement, the heart of the past horrors. With each step down the creaking staircase, the air grew colder, heavier. The potent stench of decay seemed to be soaked into the very walls. In the basement, I found the ritual circle still visible beneath layers of dust. As I stood there, a sudden rush of wind extinguished my flashlight. Panic surged within me, the engulfing darkness amplifying my fear. Just as abruptly, the basement was bathed in a sickly green light emanating from the ritual circle. I watched in horror as grotesque shadows began to manifest, contorting and writhing in an unholy dance. Then a voice echoed, chilling, guttural, seemingly arising from the depths of the earth.
You are now the offering.
It hissed. The room trembled, the spectral light intensifying, casting a ghoulish glow on the demonic shadows. Fear paralyzed me. I was the intruder here, the trespasser in this demonic dwelling. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't respond, as if bound by an unseen force. Suddenly, an enormous shadow erupted from the circle, its shape an abomination, a grotesque mockery of the human form. It lunged towards me, its voice reverberating through the room.
Welcome, Henry Littman.
And then, darkness. When I regained consciousness, I was outside the Crawford building. Its darkened windows stared down at me, an unspoken warning etched into its derelict facade. Something in me had shifted, a dread that dug its claws deep into my psyche. The building was no longer an investment. It was a living nightmare, a demonic entity baying for blood. Despite the chilling experience though, I found myself strangely drawn to the property, ensnared by the malevolent pull of the lurking demon. Its whisper echoed in my head, a haunting reminder of my status, an offering. I stood outside the Crawford building, an ominous silhouette against the blood-red dusk. The entity waited within, its malevolent presence a palpable shroud around the forsaken structure. With a deep breath, I placed my hand on the rusty gate, preparing to delve back into the demonic depths of the Crawford building. As the gate creaked open, I stepped forward into the awaiting darkness one more time. Hey, it's Liam again. This is a little Easter egg for all of you who have stayed right up until the end. Big thank you to all of you. And I look forward to sharing more stories with you very soon in the next video. Take care.